Rink Vancouver. Pre-game, post-game, every game presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play. Bodog.net. Wadden and JPat back once again with another edition of the pre-game show as the Canucks get set to face off against, well, the NHL's toughest test, JPat, as the Boston Bruins come into town in a rematch of the 2011 Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, and all these years later, it's still an event when Brad Marchand is here in Vancouver. And of course, this isn't a repeat of the Stanley Cup Final. The Canucks aren't going to be in the playoffs, let alone the Stanley Cup Final. Yeah. But in some ways, it does feel a little bit full circle because the Bruins certainly have their eyes on the big prize. They hoisted it at Rogers Arena back in 2011. They won't be doing that this spring, but somewhere, someday, perhaps, they're going to get their hands on the cup again. This is a really good team with an outrageous record, and what a test for the Vancouver Canucks.
Let's get to the lineup change, which is presented by Delaney's OK Tire out there on Fraser Highway in Langley. Looks like Thatcher Demko is going to be in a Canucks uniform once again, and a rookie going to make his debut at home.
Yeah, an optional practice yesterday after their win and their flight home from St. Louis, so couldn't read a lot into what the Canucks accomplished on the ice yesterday, and with the early 4 o'clock start, no morning skate. So we're going to have to wait until closer to warm-up to find out exactly what Rick Tocchet's going to do, but here's a suggestion for the new coach. Ice the best lineup you have at your disposal. You're going to need it against these Boston Bruins, and we're not sure about a starting goaltender. Is it the youngster Artur Silovs going back-to-back and looking for a third straight victory? Is it going to be the veteran Colin Delia in there between the pipes? It's not often that you wonder more about the backup, but yeah, based on reports yesterday, Thatcher Demko wants to be in uniform for the first time since December 1st when he got hurt against the Florida Panthers. So we'll have to see. He's got to be activated off the injured list where he's been for far too long, I'm sure, in his mind, but it feels like he is close, and maybe tonight against the Bruins, we're going to see Thatcher Demko on the bench at the very least. Also, it's going to be the home debut for Aatu Räty, who was part of that Bo Horvat trade with the Islanders. Played 7 minutes and 37 seconds in his Canuck debut the other night in St. Louis. Didn't do an awful lot. Didn't play much in the third period. We'll see if he gets an extended opportunity in this one tonight.
Canucks have held their own against non-playoff teams as of recent, but this is an entirely different test this time around.
Right. So it's one thing to outplay and ultimately come back and outscore the St. Louis Blues. The Blues are going nowhere in a hurry. The Bruins, as we said, they've got designs on being Stanley Cup champs. They are the best team in the National Hockey League. They are deep. They can beat you with skill. They can beat with physicality. They made the trade the other day, so a good team, a great team, in fact, got even better. And it sounds like they're going to inject their 2 newest acquisitions. So, yeah, I mean, this is a handful for everybody around the National Hockey League. We have seen that. And so I'm really curious to see, how do the Canucks stack up? How do they match up? How does Rick Tocchet try to dictate the matchups on home ice? Those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to as the Canucks get set to face the Bruins.
Looking forward to seeing what Elias Pettersson can do as well. He single-handedly took his team to a victory over St. Louis. What can he do against these Bruins, though?
And that's a fair question. And he was terrific, certainly in the third period in that overtime winner against the Blues. One of the best goals that he's ever scored in the National Hockey League. But is he going to get a steady diet of Patrice Bergeron on the other side? Again, the Canucks are at home. I would assume that Rick Tocchet will try to do everything in his power to work Elias Pettersson away from Patrice Bergeron, although we've seen Petey try to take on some of those head-to-head matchups against the other team's best players. Again, whether it's the Bruins' first line, second line, even if they get them out there against the fourth line, this team doesn't have any weaknesses. So, yeah, this is going to be a great test for the Vancouver Canucks. It's going to be a pretty good test for Elias Pettersson, who's playing as well as just about anybody not named Connor McDavid these days. But he's going to have his hands full, obviously, trying to produce against this Boston Bruins team.
Andrei Kuzmenko, red hot right now, has scored in 4 straight games. This will be the first time he faced Boston, though.
That's right. He was a healthy scratch back in mid-November when the Canucks rolled into Beantown. Bruce Boudreau kind of felt that his play was sagging. You know, it's the first 20 games in the National Hockey League, and maybe in the eyes of the former head coach, Kuzmenko had hit a wall. Whatever the case, he's going through the wall right now. He is holding the hot hand, the 2 late goals to force overtime out on this road trip. He's got 5 goals in his last 4 games. He has scored in 4 straight. He's back playing with Elias Pettersson. So we're talking about how are the Canucks going to generate against the Boston Bruins. I'm sure the Boston Bruins have 96 circled on their whiteboard in their locker room. They haven't seen this guy yet, but I'm sure they're aware of what Andrei Kuzmenko has been up to in his first season in the National Hockey League.
We are all aware about the Canucks penalty kill and how dismal it's been this year. However, against St. Louis, a perfect 4 for 4.
Hey, it's up to 66.3%. Hey. I can't remember last time it started with a couple of sixes there. So I don't know. Does that represent progress? What's interesting, though, against St. Louis the other night, as you said, 4 for 4 against the Blues. But the really interesting thing to me was who was leading the charge shorthanded for the Vancouver Canucks. Jack Studnicka led the hockey club in shorthanded ice time, followed closely by Dakota Joshua. So, not two of the usual suspects that we've seen for much of the season. Of course, Studnicka, a former Bruin acquired from Boston earlier this year. And if that's a role that he can embrace and take on, then I'm curious to see, can he do more of it and can he be successful? And on defense, Ethan Bear. He was the leading ice time guy when the Canucks were down a man against the St. Louis Blues. So, yeah, I mean, Rick Tocchet has talked about trying to scale back the ice time of some of his top-end players. He's not really accomplishing that particularly well. Quinn Hughes has had back-to-back 30-plus minute games, but when it's come to shorthanded situations, it does look like the Canucks are trying to incorporate a few new guys into that role.
Let's take a look at those Bruins now, who have won 5 straight, including a wild win over the Kraken.
Yeah, that was a crazy game as the Canucks and the Blues were finishing up. That one was going to the third period, and there were lead changes. There was some real emotion. The people in Seattle, I think they recognized that, look, Seattle had already beaten Boston earlier this year in Boston, handed them their first home ice regulation loss, and so you knew that the Bruins wanted to return the favor, but they had to work late, a couple of late goals. They were down, and they rallied. They ended up winning it 6-5, so there was a whole lot going on in that hockey game. But it turned out to be pretty good entertainment. We'll see if we say the same when this one is done tonight. Whatever the case, the Bruins, they've been rolling all year. But yeah, 5 straight victories trying to make it a 6-pack with a win tonight at Rogers Arena.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's offense or defense. This Bruins team stacked.
Yeah, you look at the numbers and you just shake your head. Like, there's nothing else you can do. They are the second best team offensively in the National Hockey League. Only Edmonton scores more goals and on a per game basis as well. But they are the stingiest team defensively. Nobody, and it's not even close, nobody has given up fewer goals than the Boston Bruins. Oh yeah, they also have the best penalty killing in the National Hockey League. Their power play is in the top 10. David Pastrnak second to Connor McDavid in goals with 42, and he's 4th in the National Hockey League in overall scoring. So he's a handful. We talked about Elias Pettersson and all the good things he has done this season. The same goes for Pastrnak, who really has emerged as one of the true stars, so much character and personality as well. He loves scoring goals almost as much as Andrei Kuzmenko does. So we've got some guys that are dealing these days. That's sort of the game within the game, is these high flyers and high scorers. But yeah, statistically across the board, when you look at the Boston Bruins, any way you cut it, they are right up at or near the top of the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and you talked about Pastrnak scoring all those goals. Well, preventing them is Linus Ullmark, who is having himself a career year.
Yeah, again, mind-boggling numbers, and he was the backup to Jeremy Swayman in Seattle, so this guy's rested, and he'll be ready to go here on this Hockey Night in Canada 4:00 start against the Vancouver Canucks. 29-4-1 is his win-loss record on the season. But wait, there's more. A 1.88 goals against average this deep into the season, and a save percentage running at 93.7. So this guy stops just about everything that comes his way. Oh yeah, he plays behind a defense core that has Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, Brandon Carlo, Matt Grzelcyk. They just picked up Dmitry Orlov. The Canucks have a couple of Abbotsford call-ups on their blue line right now, and they're just trying to piece it together. Again, the Bruins mean business, so they've got an incredible team, and behind that incredible team is a goaltender that certainly is holding up his end of the bargain.
Now, there's one name that we have not mentioned we cannot forget when it comes to the Boston Bruins. You know who I'm talking about, Brad Marchand.
Yeah, called on the carpet by the National Hockey League again yesterday for a bit of a slew foot, actually almost more of a leg sweep on Oliver Bjorkstrand after a whistle. 2 of them were wrestling, and before you knew it, Bjorkstrand had his legs chopped out from under him. And of course, yeah, that's Brad Marchand. $5,000 the fine. So pocket change for him. I'm sure he's not losing any sleep over the fact that he has to write another check to the National Hockey League. But he's been hauled on the carpet so many times over his career, including you think back to Game 8 when he submarined Sammy Salo. So there's a long history here between Brad Marchand and Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, the Canucks. I'm sure he's going to hear about it from the fans. But again, that's also a sign of respect that, despite all the antics, the guy truly is one of the best wingers in the National Hockey League. And you just have a feeling that he'll be heard from before this night is through.
Yeah, they don't boo the bad players, right? All right, let's get to the stat that stands out. It's presented by Jason Hominick at Jason.Mortgage.
Yeah, for me, and it goes back to those numbers that we kind of ran through, there's more any way you come at it. The Boston Bruins arrive in Vancouver with 8 regulation losses. They are 44-8-5 on the season. So it got me thinking, when did the Canucks suffer their 8th regulation loss? Remember, they were 0 for their first 7 games, but 2 of those were beyond regulation time. The Canucks lost their 8th game in regulation in their 15th contest of this season in Toronto. In fact, it was the night before they were in Boston, so they hadn't even got to Boston yet, and they had lost 8 times in regulation. The Bruins arrive in Vancouver with 8 regulation losses on the season. Yeah, 44-8-5. It is wild stuff, and we'll see what that record shows when this night is through.
Let's get to my Bodog Best Bet. I was red hot there for a little bit, a bit of a cooler right now, but I am feeling David Pastrnak and Elias Pettersson anytime goal scorers, both over 0.5 goals. Look at that value, plus 350. Pasternak's got 42 goals. He's rolling right now, and of course, we know how hot Elias Pettersson is.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, if you're going to bank on guys putting pucks in the net, those are the 2 guys. So let's see. You got to get back on the horse here. Jordan Kyrou let you down the other night in St. Louis. So he's letting the Blues, and the Blues are letting their fans down, but that's in the past. This is the Boston Bruins, and the Vancouver Canucks are going to be focused. We know that they're going to have their hands full, but yeah, I mean, I like that play. Why not? I do think that Elias Pettersson, right now, the way that he's playing, he's going to be heard from. And Canucks fans certainly hoping that he can continue that, quest for 100 and maybe more points on the season. And of course, Pastrnak has his eyes on a 100-point season too. So 2 guys that are going to be in the spotlight tonight, and we'll see how that all plays out for your Bodog Best Bet.
You can win $50 in Bodog Bucks. Here's what you got to do. Post your period and your time of the game-winning goal in the comment section here below, or head over to Twitter at RinkWideVan and find the post there. Put in your time and your period, and good luck to those that enter. Going to win $50 in Bodog Bucks. That can go a very long way. All right, a lot of candidates tonight. Who is going to do something, JPat, in this game?
Well, every member of the Vancouver Canucks is going to have to do their part just to sort of hold their own against this Boston team that has dominated so many opponents. But I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach to this one, because he's been doing just about everything for the Vancouver Canucks. So it may sound strange to say, Elias Pettersson, you got to do something. But wouldn't it be something if he could make a statement against a team like the Boston Bruins? 5 points against Philly? Yeah, that was great. In on all 3 goals against St. Louis the other night? Sure. But the Flyers and the Blues, they're not going anywhere. This is the best team in the National Hockey League, and you would love to see Elias Pettersson rise to the challenge. It hasn't happened for him in the 6 career games against the Boston Bruins. Just a goal and an assist. So pretty pedestrian statistics for EP40 to this point in his career against these big bad Bruins. So yeah, I'm looking for EP40 to take this on as a personal challenge, and he's been crushing it lately, so we'll see if he does tonight. Can Elias Pettersson do something to help the Vancouver Canucks stay with the Boston Bruins first and foremost, and then somehow maybe just pull off the wild upset?
Not many big games this year for the Canucks. However, this one, it qualifies. The best team in the NHL at Rogers Arena tonight. Let's see if the Canucks can give the Bruins a loss on the road. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Vancouver podcast, presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Remember, Rink Wide is the show that always scores.